We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we explore the art of songwriting, celebrate some incredible artists, and dive deep into the stories behind their music. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and as always, thank you for joining us. Our guest today on the podcast is the brilliant singer-songwriter Jensen McRae. The folk pop artist has a rare gift for crafting songs that feel both deeply personal and strikingly universal. She's toured alongside artists like Noah Kahan, Moona and Amos Lee, and has earned admiration from some of your favourite pop stars, with co-signs from the likes of Maisie and Gretta. Just last week, Jensen released her stunning sophomore album, I Don't Know How, But They Found Me. A hauntingly beautiful collection that sees her navigating change, acceptance, and the heartbreak with gut-wrenching vocals and masterful storytelling. Now, in today's episode, we are speaking with Jensen McRae about the making of I Don't Know How But They Found Me and the magic found in detailed songwriting. We chat about the role of journaling and observing small everyday moments in her creative process, her brief but notable foray into comedy, and what it was like working alongside her brother for this record. We also touch on the exciting possibility of seeing Jensen one day maybe tour Australia. Now we want to say a huge thank you to Kyung for his help with today's episode. Jensen McRae's brand new record, I Don't Know How But They Found Me, is out right now, and you'll find links within today's show notes on where you can purchase the record, stream her music, and follow her across all of her social media platforms. Now, while you're in the show notes, please make sure that you're following us too across all of our socials and subscribe to this very podcast wherever you get your podcast from. Now, let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Jensen McRae. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, Jensen McRae. Jensen, hello. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me. It's great over here. How are things with you?
Look, we've got no complaints here. I very much appreciate you asking. Thank you so much for coming to have a chat with us. I am so super excited to have you on the podcast this week. It's a very exciting time because we've got a brand new Jensen McRae record coming out. I Don't Know How, But They Found Me. And I want to say it's a stunner, maybe getting too Australian there with the
No, that's great.
accent.
I actually, I just watched Apple Cider Vinegar, so now I'm like really steeped in the Australian lingo, I think.
I'm still shocked. Sorry to deviate so quickly.
No, that's
Caitlin
good.
Dever's Australian accent is so impressive.
It's amazing.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm not going to say, Jensen, can you do an Australian accent? But maybe we'll come back around to that.
I can only do nar. That's all I got.
I still appreciate that effort. That's still pretty solid.
Okay, thanks.
It is an incredibly exciting time because you're putting out this gorgeous record. It is something that I think fans are going to be very excited about. I know other musician friends of yours, including Australian, like Gretta, they're excited about it as well. Firstly, congratulations on this record for yourself, from the artist herself. How are you feeling with it coming out?
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited. It feels so surreal because it's been 3 years since my first album came out, and the process of making this has been such a winding road of writing so much stuff and not knowing what the album would fully look like until really like a year ago when we really firmed up the track list and like went down to North Carolina to record it. And I just have been so excited about it ever since hearing those first mixes. And now I'm so excited and nervous for it to belong to someone other than me and my team.
100%. It is, as you mentioned, it has been 3 years since Are You Happy Now, which was like a stunning debut in itself, which I think should be recognised. For yourself, does this kind of feel different from that first time around? Obviously, we've got different songs. I think that after maybe a bit of a viral moment with Massachusetts, that there's a lot more people and a lot more eyeballs on you this time around. But does it feel different from yourself kind of as we go into the second album release cycle?
It feels super different. It's so much more there's so much more going on, and there are so many more people invested in the release of this album, which is wonderful. Like, that's always great news as an artist. You want to reach as many people as you can. But also just as like, my team was telling me like this rollout is going to feel different than anything you've experienced before because I am talking to so many more people about the album and getting to dive deeper into what the songs are really about and getting to share it with so many different kinds of audiences and different kinds of people. And I'm really enjoying it. And it's surprising because I'm pretty introverted by nature and my social battery runs out really quickly, but I seem to have this like bottomless social battery for interacting with like journalists and fans. Like I think if I go to like an industry party, I have like 5 minutes in me before I'm like, I need to go to sleep. But when I was doing a signing event in London at Rough Trade and I just like, I never wanted the line to end. I was like, I just love getting to talk to all these people and getting to put faces to these numbers that I'm seeing on a screen all the time.
I imagine that there's something that is, and this might be such a horribly cliche or basic thing to point out, but I imagine that there is a certain strength that having conversations or interactions with like-minded people that also appreciate your music in a way that you do kind of helps recharge that battery in a way.
Absolutely. My fans are the best. They're the best people ever. Like I've only had positive fan interactions. Every single one of my listeners that I've ever met has been really smart and really kind and really sensitive and thoughtful. And I get the most thoughtful messages and comments on Instagram posts and YouTube videos. And I've been really lucky also with like the interviews that I've done. Like every single interview, there's been at least one question where I'm like, wow, I haven't been asked that before. And I'm so grateful. Even when I am answering like the same questions, I'm like, it forces me to just think about like, yeah, what am I trying to say? Like, what is this message that I want to be most emphasized throughout the album release process? And so it does feel very invigorating to think about my album like from a bird's eye view of like how other people are experiencing it and asking questions about it.
I imagine that's kind of weird as well from your perspective, having to do that.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's super weird, but I love it. My team makes fun of me sometimes because I like will write fake reviews of my own music. And like, I will write out transcribe fake interviews between me and myself. Like, I love thinking about and talking about music generally. Like I love music writing and I love like engaging with other people who also want to think critically about the stuff that they consume.
I absolutely love that. Look, I might be getting too off topic here. We have an episode later on in the year where we ask some musicians to come and do exactly that. So we might reach out maybe later in the year.
Oh, brilliant.
As I mentioned, this record is absolutely stunning. The songwriting across at Jensen is first class. And I'm wanting to, I guess, firstly touch on, like we're primarily a songwriting podcast. These days, there is a lot of attention on, and I think that it's kind of, in the last 5 years or so, not necessarily come into trend, but it seems to be something that is resonating with people, that there are songwriters that have maybe hyper-specific lyrics or hyper-specific kind of things that they talk about in their songs, which makes it more relatable. And I think that what you've done on this album is that there is a balance between that there's some lines where they might be specific in nature to your own kind of perspective and experience, but then there are some where they are very universal and kind of can relate to anyone. And I think that that's balanced beautifully across this record. I think that, what was it, Tuesday was like a more like universal kind of song, where Novelty I felt was like a track that was like quite specific. And I was wondering for yourself, how do you find that balance, or where do you find that line of being like, cool, this is niche enough that people will get it, and I know people will get it, but you don't want to go too granular to me and my one friend will get it?
I find that so much of the music that I love manages to be specific while still feeling really universal. Like there's something about the great craft work there is being able to make those really granular details still feel like they matter and have resonance to people who haven't experienced them. Like something that I reference a lot is an Alabama Shakes lyric from their song Miss You. And the first line is, I'm going to miss you and your Mickey Mouse tattoo, and you'll be leaving in your Honda Accord. And it's like, that is about as specific as it gets. And yet I heard that song when I was 18 and I was like, oh my God, like this is mine. Like it still felt like it was mine, even though I didn't know anyone that fit that description. And in writing songs that are really specific, it's important to not just be listing off like facts about a person or about a situation, like being able to drop in those details to set a scene and then zoom out and think about what those things represent. It's about, I think really the art of it is turning those specific details into symbols more than like signposts for people on the inside to like know who or what exactly you're talking about. But like the specificity of someone's tattoo or the car they drive, being like, well, what does that say about that person? And don't we all know someone who is represented by that image, even if they can't relate to that image specifically?
I think that's fascinating because I think that there's a really like fine art in doing it. I think that some people can do it to a point where you can be hyper specific, and as you said, that it's kind of like almost like an in joke, but then to make it to use your words as like a symbol, I think is a tricky thing to do well, and I think that is done very well across this record. Of course, I know that I think for yourself as a songwriter, you are someone who in doing preparation for today, like read a lot of interviews, listened to a lot of podcasts with yourself on them, and that you are like you're hyper aware of those things around you, and that you keep an eye on those, and I guess a very good perspective on those. Has that always been the case with your songwriting, and I guess just in life in general, and kind of like noticing little things that others don't?
I think I've always been a particularly observant person. I don't know that I knew how to translate it into my songwriting until I got probably to music school and I was taking songwriting classes and forced to think more academically about what I was doing. But I have always been someone who has a pretty good memory for the things that people say and do, like especially like when I'm feeling emotionally charged about a situation. Like I just like lines that people say will reverberate in my head for a very long time. And when I was 18, I started journaling, and that was when I started becoming kind of obsessed with the idea of like transcribing conversations, which I don't do anymore. But I had this habit of like, if I had an interesting conversation, I would run home and be like, how much of this can I remember? Like literally try to write it out like it's in a book, like with quotations and everything. And I just have realized how valuable that is as a writer, to not only to like transcribe your own life as much as you can, but like even just being out in public and like being a little bit of an eavesdropper and being a person who's super attuned to weirdness. Like I was speaking at Columbia University on Zoom, a few weeks ago, and the kids were asking me for advice about songwriting, of course. And I said to one student who had asked me a question, like, you guys are in New York City. Like, if you walk outside, something weird's happening. Like, just start paying attention. Like, I've had times where I'll just see interesting, I live in LA, so it's the same thing. I'll see graffiti on a sign that'll be moving, or I'll overhear someone say something in a coffee shop that's super bizarre, or I'll see something in like a TikTok comment that's really weird. And I'm like, oh, I have to turn that into a song. That's happened to me so many times. And it's just, I find it makes the world feel more beautiful when you're paying really, really close attention, because love is just attention at the end of the day.
100%. I think that's an incredibly interesting perspective to have on it. And I think the word I was looking for was observational before, so thank you for allowing me to to find that word.
Of course.
I wanted to touch on for a little bit as well, because unlike a number of songwriters who kind of hold that gift, I think that you might have used the power of observation in other ways as well. I think for a period of time, please correct me if I'm wrong, that there was maybe Jensen McRae, the stand-up comic or the comedian in a way.
I tried doing improv. That is the closest I ever got to doing stand-up, which I don't think I was that good at it, but I loved it. But I do, that is, so I love comedy, and I like to think of myself as a funny person. And I don't remember who said it, but like the thing that makes comedy stick is specificity. Like what makes a joke funny is if you're talking about someone ordering ice cream, you don't just say they ordered ice cream, you say they ordered rum raisin. Like being really specific about the kind of person that you're describing. Like any story comes alive in any medium when the people that are listening to the story can really see and hear what you're talking about in their own mind. And also I feel like comedy is like an important part of my work, because you can't just be so sad all the time. Like I feel like a lot of the really like morose, melancholy writers that I know are some of the funniest people that I know. And in the same way, like a lot of comedians are some of the saddest people you'll ever meet, because like the two things must coexist. Like if you're a person who spends all day writing sad music, like you need to burn some of it off at the end of the day. And if you're a person who's choosing to pursue comedy professionally, like it's probably because you're like, there's some sadness inside you. And so you're trying to make other people laugh and make yourself laugh in order to diffuse and spread some of that out.
100%. I think it is kind of fascinating that the two can be, well, like it makes sense that the two can kind of be used in alignment with one another, and that they maybe don't get as used as often. Listening to, oh my God, what was it? It was a podcast that you were on recently, and I'm going to apologize because I can't remember the other co-host's name. But I thought it was interesting hearing about, doing stand-up and how you bring that to songwriting and the impact that it can kind of have in writing as well. And then I guess keeping that in mind when you are lyric writing, almost in that some of the songs even have maybe a drier sense of humor to them, that there's like a little wink at the end of each song.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Phoebe Bridgers for so long, and like when my first like viral moment was doing a parody of her, of course, and the thing that I was trying to tap into with that project was to replicate her ability to tell these devastating stories and set these devastating scenes. And there was always some funny detail. There was always something funny about it. Like that song, one of my favorite songs of hers off her first album, Demi Moore. Like the reason why it's called Demi Moore is because there's a repeating line that says, "I don't want to be stoned anymore." And it kind of sounds like she's saying Demi Moore. And it's like, well, that's just like silly and funny. And like, it's this horribly sad song, but there's just like there's that moment that's thrown in there that's silly. And that's something that I wanted to replicate in imitating her, but then is something that I still feel like I sometimes do in my, not all the time, but I like there to be in certain songs. I'm like, I want people to laugh a little bit. Like whenever I play Praying for Your Downfall and I say, keep telling people you're 6 feet tall, that gets a laugh. And like, I have a song on my first album called Machines where there's a line that says, "My brother has basketball practice. I'm going to hit on the coach." And that always gets a laugh because it's like, it's these, like, that's a song about like growing up and like losing your faith in your idols. But it's like, but I'm also throwing in a little joke.
Yeah. Well, I think you do it beautifully well. And I think on this album as well, there are some really touching moments. I think that one that kind of held some of that humor within it was a track that I really loved. It was called "I Don't Do Drugs." And in the second half of the record, I think that, yeah, it kind of did have those little moments where there's these beautifully painful lines, but that also have like a knowing wink in them. I was wondering whether you might indulge me a little bit and talk about "I Don't Do Drugs" and kind of where that song maybe came from or the inspiration.
Yes, I love that song so much. I wanted to write a song that was called "I Don't Do Drugs." I thought it just sounded an interesting title. That's a habit I have of coming up with the title first and then having to figure out what it means to me later. So I had that as a title. And then once I figured out the title, I thought, okay, well, I think the line in the song is, "I'd like to blame the drugs. I don't do drugs." Like the repetition of that felt a little funny, but also like devastating. Like there was something about that repetition that's like very pathetic and also very like it represents to me the feeling of the circular thoughts that are depicted in the song when you can't stop kind of turning the same thing over and over in your mind. And yeah, I wrote that song alone in my childhood bedroom. I was like home at my parents' house one night, and I actually think I had just gotten into a minor car accident, so I didn't have my car, and I was with my parents, and I was at the keyboard that I wrote all my songs on when I was like in middle school and high school. It was very late at night, and I just started playing this like walk down on the piano. And it's no secret, I'm a huge Bon Iver fan, a huge Justin Vernon fan. And I was just thinking about, as I started writing, I was like, I think this is what this feels like. This feels kind of like me trying to do my Bon Iver impression. And, yeah, the song came out, it flowed very quickly, partly because it has such an odd structure and I wasn't like beholden to like creating some kind of super catchy chorus, but also just because it's very stream of consciousness, because that's what the song is about, is like being overrun by thoughts that you can't control.
It is a gorgeous song. I would love to know, across this album as well, obviously, you are a very talented songwriter. I know that you've previously worked with artists like Gallant, I think, and Joy Olotukun. I was wondering, I know that there's a special guest on this record as well, whether you might be able to talk to us about working.
There is?
One by the name of Holden McRae, I believe.
Oh, sure. Yes. And yes, he does play the keys on every song. Yes.
Sorry for a bit of a fake out there. I
was like, I didn't know I did a feature. I didn't remember.
What was it like working with Holden? Have you guys kind of worked together in a musical capacity before?
That's some of our early stuff. I mean, the first time we toured together was at the end of 2023. I had him open for me and then play keys for part of my set. And that was our first time doing, I think we had 1 or 2 sessions together before that. Like we really weren't working together prior to that because, I mean, for a long time, he was just so young. And then he was in college, like in music school and learning. And I just wanted to make sure that if we did work together, that it was going to be fruitful for both of us. Like I didn't want it to be a thing where either of us was resenting the other person. And there just came this point that I saw in his writing and his general musical abilities that I was like, oh, I think we would both really benefit from this. So I brought him out with me for that run. And then when we talked about recording this album and talked about going to North Carolina, I was like, oh, I'm bringing Holden with me and he's just going to play all the keys parts. And being in the studio with him was just an exceptional experience. Like he's so talented. He's an amazing, amazing musician and he's so smart. And I was saying this to someone else earlier today, like he's incredibly coachable. He was a high school athlete, and he also was a food runner at this fancy restaurant for a couple of years. He's really good at being on a team and really good at taking instructions. And so he's the ideal person to have in a band and in the studio, because like if I or Brad, the producer, had an idea for him to execute, he would execute it every time. Like he's so good at, if you give him really specific instructions, he just nails it. And I just feel like we both learned so much from working with each other and being in that environment together. And I just can't wait to keep making music with him. Like he's so good.
Oh, that was kind of where I was going to ask that next question, is like, if these sessions were kind of fruitful and obviously produce what we've kind of got across the record, can we see future collaborations between yourself and your bro?
Yeah, because we didn't write anything for this album together, but while we were recording in the studio, we did end up writing a song like in the moment. And I'm sure I'm going to end up playing it on tour as like a little unreleased sneak peek. I definitely think for my next album, I'm going to have some songs that I've written with him, because he's so fast. His brain is so fast. He's an excellent lyricist. Like I said, an amazing keyboard player. This is definitely not the end. And if I'm lucky, hopefully he'll always be in my band. Hopefully I don't lose him. He doesn't get headhunted by someone else. I want him to be my keyboard player forever.
Look, hopefully the fact that there's, what is it? The blood's thicker than water. Hopefully he keeps that in mind. Obviously family ties,
so.
Holden, family ties. Talking about going out on tour, curious for yourself, there is, like, as I keep kind of mentioning, and we'll continue to praise this record, that there's quite just a lot of incredible tracks across this for yourself. Is there a certain song off this new record that you're looking forward to taking out on tour across the US?
I'm really excited to play Let Me Be Wrong live, because it was a song that was born out of my experience touring with Muna. Like every time I sang Silk Chiffon with them on that run, I would just leave the stage feeling like I couldn't wait to have a song like that in my own set, and to have moments in my own live set as a headliner one day where the audience would just feel this buoyancy and this joy, and it would just get loud and big and just kind of like effortlessly fun. And I feel like Let Me Be Wrong is hopefully going to be that moment. There's a few like fun pop songs on the record, like Praying for Your Downfall and Novelty have that too. I'm planning some fun covers, but I really think Let Me Be Wrong is going to be like one of the biggest releases emotionally for people that's not crying. Like I think everyone's going to scream and dance and really, really love that one.
I do love that. I think it does have there's a bit of Muna energy in that song in terms of the the cathartic kind of feel that it kind of gives you after listening to it or during it. Jensen, I'm wondering whether you might indulge us, wondering where you first got your start in songwriting, what originally attracted you to like writing lyrics, and I guess what was it that got you doing it to begin with?
I learned to read really young. And I always loved books and stories. Like that was always something that I loved. And I loved singing. I was singing as soon as I could talk. And those two things were kind of separate, I guess. But then when I told my mom when I was 4 years old that I wanted to be a singer, she said that if I really want to do something in music, the money was in writing. And I had to be able to write my own songs and play my own instruments. And I got into piano lessons. And I think I was maybe 7 or 8 when I wrote my first song. I had an assignment for school where we had to just create a creative project in response to a folktale. And I asked if I could write a song. And so I wrote a song about an Indian retelling of the Cinderella story. And that was like my first complete song. My piano teacher helped me write it. And that began a very long tradition of me holding my classmates hostage with songs that I wrote for school. And I just realized that it was something that I just loved it so much. I loved being able to tell stories in a succinct and structured format like that. And I have continued to write in so many other mediums. Like I love writing fiction and poetry and screenplays and all those things. But songwriting has always been paramount among all of my kind of literary loves.
I absolutely love that. I'm really curious then by kind of what you mentioned before, being out on tour with Muna and having those moments when you are playing with other artists and touring with other artists, and I guess kind of like, what's the phrase? Almost like a musical sponge in a way, kind of taking in little bits and pieces of what you deem to want to do yourself. How does that work in terms of, I guess, how do you approach having moments like that, like being able to recognize other bits in other kind of artists and songwriters and then bringing that to your project?
I think because of my tendencies towards the observational generally, like I am always trying to figure out like what I can learn from the people around me. Like the other day I started making a note in my phone. Like I noticed like I noticed I was feeling envy towards like girls I saw online, and I was like trying to unpack why. And so I just started making lists of all the qualities that I admired in those girls that I thought that I lacked or that I maybe had but wanted to work more on. And I realized that was such an insane thing to be doing. But I that's how I approach everything. Every strong feeling that I have and every life experience that I have, my instinct is to just start making lists and start taking inventory of like, well, what's happening here? Why am I feeling the things that I'm feeling? And how can I either replicate this feeling or avoid ever feeling this way again? Like depending on the case. And being on tour, like I'm a bit of a teacher's pet. And I always, when I was in school, was trying to get as much as I could out of every class that I was in. And I felt like being on tour as an opener, every single time was just a master class. It was like, what do I want to take away from this? What do I want to do when I'm a headliner that they did? Is there anything that went askew that I want to avoid? And overwhelmingly, like my tours as an opener just were so wonderful and went so well. And I just saw how important it is to be gracious and to be present and to have strong, solid routines and have strong, solid community around you. And I hope and plan to implement all of that as a headliner myself.
That is very, very exciting to hear. I myself, we're over in the US in a few weeks, so hopefully trying to catch or work out some way to catch one of your dates in May in the US. So very excited for that. If we can make it happen. I do have to ask though, because maybe I won't make that happen, but also a number of your Australian fans, can we maybe at some point expect to see you down here in support of the record?
Someday, absolutely. My dream would be to go next year. I don't know if or when or how that would happen, but that is the dream in my heart. I love Gretta Ray so much. She's my number one Australian girl. And, I would just absolutely love to spend, to spend more time there, because I feel like, you know, there's obviously a kinship between Australia and the UK, and I've spent a lot of time in the UK and it's, I guess, Canada as well. Like we're all the English speaking, all the English speaking nations.
What is it? The Commonwealth. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I love Canada. I love the UK, and I haven't gotten to explore Australia at all. And I'm really excited about the prospect of doing that, especially when I check like my back end statistics and I see how many people are listening to me in Australia. I'm like, I know I have people there. I know I have friends there. Like, yeah, I just got to get down there. It'll take me 1,000,000 hours and cost $1 million, but I'm going to get down there eventually.
Well, look, fingers crossed that we get that next year. Very excited for the prospect of that, and very excited to hear how this upcoming tour does go for you. Jensen, we usually kind of wrap things up asking our guests what they're currently listening to. For yourself, is there anything that's currently on high rotation?
Oh gosh. Okay. Besides I'm pulling up Spotify because all I can think of is my own album, which I've been listening to on Dropbox. There's
also
a song
fair.
called Jennifer. Yes. There's a song called Jennifer's Body by an artist named Julia Wolf that I'm absolutely obsessed with. I'm one of my openers. This lovely girl named Ellie Rowe put out a song called Fentanyl and Wedding Rings that's so good. And then there's a song called Deadbeat City by a band called Kids That Fly. I found them on TikTok, and it just sounds like music that I listened to in high school. Like it's so 2014 in the best way. And so I've been very addicted to those songs. I've been listening to them a lot.
I absolutely love that. We'll have to definitely check those out, especially that last one. Very curious about that one. Jensen, thank you so much for coming to chat with us. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, this was lovely.
Congratulations on I Don't Know How, But They Found Me. It is out now. When people are listening to our chat, we'll put all details in the show notes for people to buy the record, find your US shows, and hopefully follow you on socials when maybe there are some Australian dates announced. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.